Shepherd's pie, an amazing, wonderful dish straight from Ireland, brought to you in my kitchen. Today, I'm going to show you how to make this wonderful dish that you can eat anytime that you want. Hi, my name is Joshua, and be prepared to witness one of the greatest meals to be made right before your eyes. To start by making shepherd's pie, we're going to take some Yukon Gold potatoes and we're going to fill the pot up with enough water until the potatoes are completely covered. Then we'll put the heat onto medium and we're going to have to let this boil. The reason we get started with the potatoes first is because you're going to need a nice layer of creamy, delicious, good mashed potatoes that go on top of the meat filling. Now, shepherd's pie has many different ways of creating that meat filling. Some of the things that you need to know is that if you make shepherd's pie with beef, it's not shepherd's pie, it's actually cottage pie. So today we're actually going to be making it with a little bit of lamb. So before we get started with the lamb, we're going to take our cast iron skillet and we're going to put a little bit of olive oil in the bottom. And we're going to let the pan get piping hot. Now that the pan is getting there to a nice good hot temperature, we're going to take ground lamb. You can get ground lamb at your local butcher. If you cannot find it at your grocery store, you're going to have to go to the local butcher. But you're going to take 2 pounds of ground lamb. We're going to put that in there to let that cook. Always remember to wash your hands after touching raw meat. And as that lamb starts to cook, we're going to break it up. So we're going to let this cook up a little bit until we have a nice good brown color on the ground lamb. Okay, now that we got a nice good brown color going on the meat here, we're going to keep the heat onto the pan. We've scooped up some of the fat juices that were laying around, so now we have a little bit of fat left in the pan, which is fine. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to basically scoop all of the lamb into another container to hold it until I'm ready to add it back into the gravy that I'm going to get started here in a minute. That's okay if some of the ground meat is still left over in the pan. That's perfectly fine. We'll come right back to this meat here in a minute. In the meantime, we're going to take a yellow onion and we're going to dump it in there and sweat it out. We're basically sweating out the onion. We're going to put a little bit of a caramelization to the onion. We want the onion to cook down a little bit before we add it back into the meat because we don't want raw, crunchy onions in our shepherd's pie. We want everything to be cooked and nicely come together in a wonderful dish. So we're going to let this sit in the pan And we're gonna let them sweat out a little bit. We're gonna get them nice, good, caramelized. So as the onions are sweating out a little bit, they're cooking down, they're starting to turn slightly translucent. We're now at a point where there's a little bit of a bite left into the onion. There's not a whole lot. And what we're going to do next is we're going to add diced carrots. To the mixture. And we want to do the same thing with the carrots that we did with the onion. We want to cook them down a little bit. We're going to mix this all together. Because again, just like the onion, you don't want a raw, crunchy carrot in your shepherd's pie. You want it to all come together nice and beautifully. Now I use a yellow onion in this dish because a yellow onion is better suited for this type of meal here. They're not as crunchy, they're not as strong as in bite or flavor as a white onion. They cook real nicely. They're great for stews and casseroles, things like that. And that's why I'm using a yellow onion. More traditional Irish shepherd's pie recipes may call for a white onion. You can also make it with a couple shallots. You get a couple shallots diced up, and you can throw shallots in if you don't like the whole strong flavor of an onion. You can use red onion, although I've never seen a red onion in a shepherd's pie dish. It's usually white or yellow. As you can see, they're coming together nicely. The onion has a nice color to it. The carrot is starting to lose its crunch. We're almost ready to add the meat back. But what we're going to do first is we're going to add some peas. Now we want to be careful as we turn the pan, as we turn all the ingredients. We don't want to mash the peas together. We want them to come and cook nicely. Now we're ready to start adding the ground lamb. So we're going to start scoop hole, bringing the ground lamb back in. Those of you watching at home, if you've never cooked this extensively in a kitchen before, whether it's your home kitchen or a professional kitchen, be prepared. It gets hot. If you cannot stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Go ahead and get this stirred around a little bit. And now we start to add the rest of the ingredients that will make shepherd's pie, shepherd's pie. So next, I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil and salt, ground pepper, Worcestershire sauce, some herbs. It's all stirred around, mixed up a bit. And then we'll add lamb broth. And we're going to let all of this come together before I add the final ingredient. Now, just because it's a gravy doesn't mean it has to be thick, like your Thanksgiving gravy. And the final ingredient is going to be a little bit of flour. Now the flour is going to act as a thickener, which anybody who's ever made gravy or chilies, soups and stews, a thickener is needed. We're basically going to mix this in, make sure that flour taste cooks down a little bit. Again, just like my first two videos, previous videos, the ingredients that I use will be listed in the description below. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. We're going to let this cook a little bit as we check our potatoes. Our potatoes are come to a nice good rolling boil here, well, more like a simmer. So all you're going to do to check your potatoes is you're going to basically find a potato and you're going to push in. All right, if you can push into a potato without much pressure, basically the fork just goes through on its own, your potatoes are done and we are ready to make some mashed potatoes. So we're going to kill the heat. All right, so the gravy's coming together nicely. It's mixing all together with the meat. It smells really good. So now what we're going to do is we are basically going to kill the heat on the skillet. It will continue to cook a little bit longer in the skillet because the great thing about iron skillets is they attract so much heat in the walls, even the handles, that it continues to cook from all directions. Okay, iron skillets are by far some of the best skillets I've ever used in the kitchen. I love them to death. If you take care of them, they last forever. They last a lifetime. They'll never break on you. They'll never rust as long as you take care of it properly. Great to have in any kitchen. All right, I love this iron skillet. So what we're going to do is we're going to kill the heat. Okay, it's about to get controversial. Everybody has their own ways of making mashed potatoes. I discovered this way by watching my mother-in-law. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our potatoes and we are basically going to spoon them into a stand mixer. Stand mixers are wonderful kitchen tools. You will find them in a lot of professional kitchens. You'll find them in a lot of home kitchens. This one here is a KitchenAid brand stand mixer. It is the classic brand. They make different models. Now the mashed potatoes go on top of all the meat. All right, now that we have them in, we're going to take a wire whisk and we will attach it to the stand mixer. And we're going to push it down. We're going to lock it. Next, we're going to add some milk. Put a little bit of milk in at a time. Put it on the lowest setting. And let that go around. I'm going to add a little bit more milk, and what you're basically going to do is add milk slowly as you mash the potatoes together. Kerrygold pure Irish butter. We're putting the best butter we could possibly get on the market into our mashed potatoes. Because why? We're making an Irish dish. Why not go for some Irish ingredients? As it's turning, we're going to take a nice pad of butter. Let that get in there. You may occasionally have to stop so that you can scrape the sides down. And that's okay. As that pad of butter melts in there a little bit, we'll cut another pad off. Throw that in there. And we'll repeat. We'll double scrape the sides one last time as we're making sure that we got all that needs to be gotten. And now our mashed potatoes are nice and done. They are nice and creamy. and they are ready to go atop the shepherd's pie. Now, casserole dish that we used to store the lamb while we were getting everything else cooked up is going to be the exact same dish that we're going to put the lamb back into. So, basically going to give the lamb a nice good stir. And then we will scoop everything back into the casserole dish. As you scoop it all into the casserole dish, you want to make sure that you get a nice good spread. You want it to go all over the place. Now, in the kitchen helping me today is my sous chef, my wife, who's probably eating the cheese right now that she just grated up. That is another controversial topic. Traditional shepherd's pie does not call for cheese on top of the mashed potatoes, but mine does, because that's the neat thing about shepherd's pie. Once you learn the basics of a shepherd's pie, you can mix anything that you want with it. There's times we make shepherd's pie with ground deer because that's all we have. We can't get a hold of ground lamb. So we're going to make sure this is all spread around nice and even. And next, we're going to top it with the mashed potatoes. Take our mashed potatoes. They are nice and creamy. And we will spoon and pour the mashed potatoes on top. I'm going to spread this all the way around, make sure that every corner is touched. If you want to get real fancy, you can put this all in a piping bag for like cakes. You can pipe it on the top here. Put beautiful little peaks on it. In this house, and in any Irish house, no potato goes to waste. Like I said, we get it all in there. If you go to an Irishman's house and they're not fans of potatoes, I question their heritage. You can hate me all you want on that one. Now we have some freshly grated cheese. Two mixtures here, white and cheddar. We're going to mix these up together. I like going with freshly grated cheese because it melts better. As I've said in previous videos before, store-bought cheese that's pre-shredded in the bags, it has a coating. And that coating basically prevents the cheese from sticking in the bag, which is great for pre-shredded cheese in a bag, but when it comes to cooking the cheese, it doesn't cook or melt the way it should. It melts in strings and you can see it. So now that we've got these two cheeses mixed together, here comes my final controversial bit of shepherd's pie, and that is sprinkling a little bit of cheese on top. My family, we like to put cheese on top of shepherd's pie. We like the flavor, we like the consistency. And with that, we have the oven preheated at 350 degrees. Go ahead and put the light on in the oven. We're going to open the oven. Shepherd's pie now goes into the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes until the cheese is melted and bubbly on top. And as soon as we get to that point, we'll pull it out and then we'll wrap it up. As we open this up, we see the cheese has melted perfectly. And there we have shepherd's pie.